morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Right. So, my name is Dr. Sharon Johnson. I am a phoenix. I'm always saying that everywhere I go, I am a phoenix. Just want to introduce myself. I do work with the Postal Service for 21 years. I'm in management for 19 years. I teach, I speak, I train. That is my story, and I'm sticking to it. Right? And I am a John Maxwell coach, so I've had conversations with many of you about the John Maxwell team. So leadership is very dear to my heart. We're doing leadership, working in the Postal Service, managing people. And so when I looked at leadership, I wanted to look at what is it about leadership? You know, leadership comes in many ways. All of us in the room are leaders. We agree? If you're a wife, a mother, sister, co-worker, you are a leader because leadership comes from within. And so I tell people all the time, I'm originally from the island of Jamaica. And when I was 2 years old, my mother left me. She didn't want me. I couldn't understand it. I'm so beautiful. I don't get it. But she left me, and at the age of 10, she died. So I don't know my mother. I have no idea what she looks like. But all along my life, I met leaders. And there was people coming into my life, leaders, pastors, my grandmother. And so leadership, again, becomes very dear to me. What is it that motivates people? So when I looked at my study, leadership skills, job satisfaction, and motivation in the workplace, a phenomenological research study, when I looked at it, I wanted to find out what is it. My mentor, Dr. Shubhashish Nandi, he couldn't be here today, but certainly he told me, go ahead, you can do it, right? And so when I looked at the problem, the specific problem is, there is a struggle, if you'll agree with me, there is a struggle right now going on with leaders and understanding how their leaders are influencing people. People in the workplace, is everyone in the room motivated in the job that they're in right now? You love your job and you're motivated, right? So, and again, we look at it and statistics says that 77% of U.S. employees they're unhappy with their current job. People are complaining. I don't like my boss. I don't like where I work. I'm working too many long hours. What is it? So in the study we look at, I wanted to find out what is it that leaders need to do differently to help people to motivate. Do people really need motivation to be satisfied? What is leadership? What is job satisfaction? What is motivation? And so the purpose of the study was to explore the lived experiences and perception of leaders and how their leadership skills might, and I say might, influence employees. So let's look at leadership. You know, I'm a John Maxwell fan, so I'll say John Maxwell said leadership is everything. Everything rise and fall with leadership. Do you agree? Everything. It doesn't matter what you do. And if you're a leader in a room, if you're leading and no one is following, you're just taking a walk. You're taking a nice stroll by yourself, right? And so motivation, I think, is not there, but motivation is really the desires and the needs that we have. And how do we get people, how do we motivate people? You know, we look at motivation, it says, I'm motivated, you know. I just don't get people motivated. I teach people how to maintain and stay motivated. And job satisfaction is a pleasurable, and I say pleasurable, or it's a positive emotional state. You know, you're at work and you feel good about it. You say, I feel good about my job. I really love this job. And so when I look at doing the study, it wasn't quantitative because I wanted to look again at phenomenology, the lived experiences. What is it that we feel and want to talk about in the workplace? What is it that impacts us in the workplace that we can say? So when I spoke to those leaders, I want to know their life, their perspectives. And so I actually did my church family. And I didn't look at the church itself, but I looked at the leaders in the church, as I'm one of the leaders in my church. But I looked at the leaders in the church in their different positions outside of the church. And so with that and phenomenology, I get that wide experience, you know. I was able to speak with lawyers, and five of them were doctors, and 4 of them were MBAs and BAs, and so you had that coupled experience of knowing that these are people with different experiences that can talk about leadership. And so there were research questions. The perception of the leaders' behaviors, the behaviors that influence employees' level of job satisfaction. How do the perception of the leaders and leadership style and behaviors? Now, style is very important. Yesterday we heard about transformational leadership and we know the charismatic leader, and I think I'm a transformational leader, right? I believe that's my forte. At the Postal Service, I am the engagement coach. And Gallup Industries they do polls, the Gallup polling, and the Postal Service itself is looking at nationwide How do we change? One of the things I taught the Postal Service, we have all this bad rap about the Postal Service, but it is a great place to work. And we are looking at engaging with employees, found what is it that us leaders need to do to get them more engaged? Delivering the mail. Everybody knows their mail carrier in the room, right? That is a tough job. And my job at night is to encourage and motivate and inspire people to work hard and push and get that mail out in the street on time so you have your mail on time, right? Isn't the worst thing to know your carrier's not there when you get home? Anybody know that? The mail didn't come today, you're expecting it didn't come. That's what I do. I empower people to get that mail out. Very difficult world, different world, So we look at perception, the third one, of the leaders and relationship between leadership behaviors and motivational factors. It's very, very important, motivational factors that influence job satisfaction. Now, my population, 24 leaders in the church, 5 to 10 more years of experience. They all had different experience that I mentioned before, and most of them were 21 years of age and older. And you may say, well, why did you do that? Again, that saturation was important. The diversity of the people was important to understand what is it. And so it wasn't just church leadership, as I said before. And so many themes came out of this, change. Let's talk about for a minute motivation and change. When it comes to motivation, people don't like change. You're working somewhere and things are going to change. And there's a great saying that says, when you change your mind, you change your life, right? And so I'll tell my employees some of the things, and even with speaking with the people, change comes about. What do you do when that change comes? Does that change the way you feel about your job? What if your job, you're at your job, you got the pictures, the family up there, everything is there, and then so your office is going to change? Do you want to know why? Is it how you're told your office is going to change? Is it how you're told your building to close down? Is it the leadership style of your leader, the delivery of the message? Everything matters in that process. And so in the themes and discussion that emerged out of the study using the Ed Vivo, I learned that working with people is important to motivate people. We looked at, Dr. Nandi and I, we looked at leadership itself, and we looked at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy says that we have these levels in our life, we have these needs. And so the first level, we have those basic needs. Believe it or not, in the study, we looked at Maslow's hierarchy. With the Postal Service and the Gallup engagement program, I'm using Maslow's hierarchy because at the very bottom, we have those needs and we have those wants. And as we move up into those areas of self-esteem, we want to feel like we belong. Remember as students, when we first started our study with the University of Phoenix, we want to be doctors, right? And as you move up and you start studying, you belong. And as you get to residency, oh, wait a minute, I belong to a team. You start meeting people, you start knowing people, and you start changing and feeling like this is really for me. And if you go back into the workplace, when I go into companies and I teach it, by the way, so you know, as a John Maxwell speaker, trainer, and coach, I go into companies, I travel, I go to different places, and I ask the leaders, what is it that you want to know about your employees? And on the other hand, do you really want to know what your employees want to say about you? That's important, right? Because I learned as a leader, I could do all of the things to motivate my people. But is it that what they want? So you have to communicate. The 7 C's, you got to connect. Everyone communicates, but very few connect. Are you a leader that is connecting with your people? You can talk. Are they connecting with you? Do they understand you? Because it is through that connection, right, that the motivation takes place, right? The behavior that you're dealing with that employee with. Anybody agree? Can anyone share me one experience that you think that has motivated? Just one person.
Coming here for this conference, I'm motivated and inspired.
Right? Another one I saw. Yes, sir.
My first internship was the first time I went out of the country in 1993. I worked at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church just outside of Johannesburg, South Africa, right before the fall of apartheid, in opposition to apartheid. And I worked with a charismatic Presbyterian pastor right when the Vineyard movement, we see, a lot of sort of growth of Pentecostalism throughout the world. And it was striking because the minister was very reserved, very erudite, but he was charismatic. I thought, this is interesting. I was not charismatic at that point, I'm now a charismatic Catholic, but I thought there's something really different happening throughout the world. And by the way, Brazil, our Brazilian colleague, that's one of the places where Pentecostalism has really exploded. So I studied this as an academic topic, just really sociologically, like what's going on throughout the world, how is it changing, overturning, and replacing even governments. And the Pentecostal movement was actually a hidden factor behind the shift to a free South African society.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And so when we look at another field is education, experience, and training. Very important to motivate employees to perform well in their duties. Yesterday we heard about the importance of saying to people, you're doing well, you're doing a good job. Even if it's not quite done, if you're working with teams, right? With teams together, each achieve more, right? We know that. But if the team is not connecting, and if you're a team project manager, how important is it to motivate the team? It's like a cheerleader, like, red, yeah, let's go team, let's go, right? I'm a basketball mom too, right? So I'm everywhere. And so what you find is that education is important. As leaders, it's so important. This destination process for me was very exciting. People tell me, well, you made it look so easy. But it excited me because I was empowered, I was inspired. What I want to do for people was happening to me. But I found out that with experience and training as leaders, you can't give what you don't have, do you? Right? You walk into the room as a leader, you've got to be trained, you've got to be experienced, and your employees look at that. How could you teach me something that you don't know, right? And so when we look at this whole process of motivation, job satisfaction, and in the workplace, we found that leadership styles are significant and influence how leaders influence employees, motivation, and job satisfaction. Now, we know that we're all different people in the room, right? And I'm also a certified Dr. Ron DISC trainer with human behavior and assessment, and I use the DISC training. And when you look at behaviors, we're all different people. We are developed from the core. God made us into special beings. I tell people all the time when I teach in the religious setting that, you know, God gives us potential. He gives us a potential. All we have to do is to develop that potential. And so when we look at leadership style, I'm a transformational leader, but what about the transactional leader, right? What about the servant leaders? John Maxwell coaches all across the world. We're servant leaders. We go into communities and we change lives. You know, there are 2 great days in our lives. Do we know those days? 2 great days in all of our lives. Everybody's got a birthday in the room, right? Mm-hmm. That's your first day. And the second great day is when you find out, what's my why? What is my why as a leader? You know, what is if I decide to be a leader, I'm no longer looking about me, it's no longer about you, but it's about people and serving people. So we find that styles are significant. So don't change your style, right? I was at the store the other day, it says that we don't build business, we build people, and the people build the business. And so in your organization, that's what we do. When you're talking about leadership, motivation, job satisfaction, you build your people. And so I also learned that in talking to those leaders, there are 3 sacrifices that emerged. As leaders, we sacrifice all day, whether you're in a classroom, whether you're in the military. You know, some of my participants were military. Whether you're, you know, whatever you are, sacrificing. Family time. Yes, we talk about family time when we talk about women in the workplace, and the family time. Men and women, in my case, I deal with men and women, right? We spend so much time at work that we don't spend time with family. Choices, right? Long hours. Who work long hours? Any 12-hour days in the room, right? Do you get tired? Yeah. Do you just like one day say, I can't do this no more? But then you have a team, right? You have people. So when I go into organizations and I say to the leaders, your employees working long hours, let's take a look at it. Is it long, productive hours? You know, something to look at, right? And so we see personal time. We all could have been somewhere else, couldn't we? We're in Orlando, we could be at the theme park, right? But we choose to be in the room to talk more about leadership, to talk about, to share an experience that we can take back into our workplaces, take back into our study, or enhance our study, or go back and train and teach people and developing people. So leadership motivation is really important. Now, when I looked at my study and I did my church, in Nigeria, when they did the study in Nigeria, we found that transformational leaders enhance job satisfaction. So it's not just the 77% that's in the United States. And it could be more, it could be a higher number, right? But again, we see that transformation leaders enhance job satisfaction. Another study was done in Vietnam. Strong, influential leadership retain and develop employees' motivation. And I do a lot of things because I also do a volunteer program in my daughter's school. I run a program called Developing, it's a students program, right? It's a Students of Tomorrow program. And every month, once a week, I go into the school, and it's actually from 3rd to 5th grade, and I'm teaching them developing skills as leaders in the workplace. And they're only 3rd and 5th graders. But would you believe that now the mayor is involved, and so each of my students every month gets a chance to be Student of the Month. The graduation, I speak at their graduation, and the principal called me and she says, you would not believe what these students are doing. They're changing the school. They're going around, and she said, can you just come in and watch them? See what they're doing, because guess what? They're developing leadership skills. And we talk about the workplace, we talk about the school, the classroom, it doesn't matter. Leadership is everything, right? Every single thing. In India, another study showed that transformational leadership motivates employees to exceed performance expectations. Anybody here want to share anything about exceeding performance? Did you think maybe the behavior, your style of your boss, the environment that you work in, do you think it exceeded performance, help you to exceed? Yes, no, maybe so?
Yes, I just received a 16.3% raise on top of a 20% raise before that from Kaplan, and it's good. You know, I'm doing excellent work.
We want to work where you work, right?
And yeah, it was good. Like, you know, long discussion about benchmarking, you know, salary percentiles, you know, markets, and which was odd because the management structure is going completely functional. So you have the service people who only do like shipping the books. You have the academic people who only do the publishing. But then you have the tutors, and we're in some ways like, you know, private contractors. But I mean, you could do like almost do as well as an attorney as a tutor, depending on how good you are and, you know, what the market is. Actually, a tutor for one of my best friends, he literally said, okay, am I retaining you as an attorney or as like my son's tutor? I go, well, I only get a part of that. So there's like a big overhead that Kaplan's getting their profit. But yeah, when you're dealing with sort of mixed management structures where people are in different areas having to also do HR issues, but it's not their area, yeah, it takes some amount of transformational leadership at the top and then disseminate it so that way people can function well together. Otherwise you get this, well, we're the marketing people, we're the service people, we're the academic people, and it can become conflictual. And so if it's not transformational, then yeah, it can be negative. But when it's transformational, it really works. Yeah.
Now, thank you for sharing that. One of the areas that we looked at in the study was Hertzberg motivational theory. And we find that when you're looking at motivation, some are external and some are internal. Now, you may not like your boss, but you love the bathroom at your job, right? You just love where your job is, and the rooms are clean, the ceiling is clean, everything is clean. You go to work and you just feel so good about it, right? Does that motivate you? Believe it or not, those are external ways. And again, of course, if you're doing well, you want to be acknowledged, you want your boss to get a reward. You haven't had a reward in a long time. You know, you can communicate with your boss. There's so many things that we look at. So we looked at that, and we find that even in India, Vietnam, and Nigeria, motivation works. There's a definite correlation with that. Now, when I did the study, and again, just excited about the study, I realized there are some limitations, you know. The number of participants in the study, I used those 24 leaders in it. I could have used more, maybe a little more saturation, right? The selected group of participants, what would happen if I used a different group? So there are some limitations there. The time frame, I had to participate in the interview process, using that phenomenological research process. Maybe the participants might have needed some more time to express their lived experience in that, because interestingly, I love to talk. You know, and my participants wanted to talk more about it. People were really excited about expressing this because they felt the need to, plus given the opportunity. So now I should have done it on my workplace, right? I probably got totally different scores. But definitely there are some limitations. Now let's talk about the significance of the study, which was very interesting, right? Because there are other factors to identify that might influence. If we had more time, we could look at more factors, right? We could provide leaders and managers and administrators with more meaningful information when we look at studies like this. offer leaders the opportunity to create innovative perspectives. And yesterday, he talked a little about what is innovation, right? But innovative skills, innovative styles to enhance leadership, right? Help human resource leadership and other organizations understand how leadership skills affect organization. And that's what I do on a more in-depth level. You know, doing my study was really great for me with what I do, going into organization. So it gives me more tools, more resources, and more information from a dissertation point of view to talk to employees and leaders and administrators and human resource personnel how important it is. Leadership is important. Future studies that leaders can consider using assessment tools, right? Many of you may have used some assessment tools in your office. Develop more interactive sessions. There needs to be more engagement in the workplace, right? In the classroom. Incorporation of the themes that I found that emerge and expand on those, maximize the understand impact on leadership. And leaders can institute an open communication platform. Do you think you got a chance to talk to your boss enough? Do you get a chance? No, right? You know, because sometimes it's just the time. You just don't have time, right? And then some implications: improve leader qualities of leadership, motivation, and job satisfaction. Increased job satisfaction could lead to positive effects. When people are happy, you know, productive people, you know, empowered people produce more. That's just it, really, you know. People don't, yesterday I shared, Maya Angelou says that people don't care what you do for them, right? They just want to know that you care for them. Don't give me roses, tell me that you care, right? It works for marriages, it works for the classroom, work for the workplace, right? You know, create innovative perspective on leadership skills. And this study will help human resource and other organization leadership understand the importance of leadership. You know, leadership, they make it so general, but everything in leadership is important. Explore leadership training and evaluation. What types of leadership? Focus on those. What types of leadership training are important for your workplace? Recommend motivational training, like myself, I come to your workplace, right? And compare, one good thing I thought of, maybe the comparison of the leader and employees' perceptions. We looked at just the leader perception, but what about the employees' perceptions? You know, again, as leaders, we think it's what we want and think it's what they want and think, right? And so, are there any questions? Because always remember, you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, smarter than you think, and twice as beautiful as you ever imagined. Right? Thank you so much. Are there any questions? Yes.
Yes. How did you find transferring back and forth between a nonprofit sample of leadership and then for-profit or say I don't know governmental? Like what are the benefits and drawbacks of making those translations? Because I run into this all the time. Like I know, a good friend of mine is a former Miami-Dade County Commissioner. She's head of first a state nonprofit board, but then actually just been named the head of a national nonprofit board. And she's incredible at that, but then sometimes the translation from nonprofit to say for-profit, it's tougher. Like another person's an attorney with Lockheed Martin, but there's always like a translation that has to happen. There's universals that transcend each of those contexts, but there's always, I don't know, benefits and drawbacks that I've found. But what have you experienced between nonprofit, for-profit, and say governmental?
Well, the important thing is, I hope I answered your question, is that even though I use a nonprofit, the church, the participants, it was their lived experiences in their jobs outside of the church, not their leadership position in the church. And so some of them were lawyers, some were military personnel, some of them were school teachers, some of them were different, administrators, CEOs, managers, different leadership positions. So they were from their not non-profit, but all from different areas. And that was the greatest part about it, because you had that diversity of experiences. Yes?
Did they find that they had to make translations in each of those contexts? Very successful people will serve, good friend of mine is an appellate attorney, former head of the appellate section for the Florida Bar, but then he's also the head of the board of directors for American Stage Theater Company. And so he has to act as a professional here in one way that's different from maybe what he does as private life, like private practice. But then, I don't know, there's always some amount of translation. Some goes from one to the other, but then, I don't know, he has to weigh the cost and benefit of doing one or the other. So.
And that is an excellent question, but I have to say that when you're a leader, and you're a leader in any position, any job, that you take those skills with you. Those are life skills that you take with you. And you just have to know your audience, obviously, to know who you're dealing with.
Okay.
And that's why behaviors are important. Leadership styles and behaviors are important, because when you're leading at church, if you're running the men's ministry, you're using your leadership skills, but again, it depends on the job, what you're doing, versus when you're at work as a manager, and you're training people, and you're task oriented. So again, but your basic leadership skills stay with you. Leading people, treating people right, respecting people, connecting, communicating, allowing people, and just developing relationships. That doesn't change as a leader. So hopefully that is that.
Did you notice any biases by interviewing the people at your church? Did that impact you in any way, or their ability to share information with you direct?
I don't know, maybe because of my creative energy, but we just had a good old time, People wanted to do more. People were asking me afterwards. So there weren't many biases, But the core theme that emerges, that people want to be respected in their workplace. Doesn't matter where you work. There's certain things that are just basic that we want. We're spending too many hours working. We need to spend less time working. Or bosses need to be more knowledgeable and have more skill. Their traits need to be better. So the core themes were basically, we want better bosses, we want better workplaces, we want cleaner workplaces, we want to stop working so many long hours. And they find that their commitments are also choices, because it determines the types of jobs that they were in. Yes? Is that all? Any more questions? If not, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And so I just want to share with you, I'm very intentional. During my dissertation process, after working with people, I realized that people need to work from within. So I wrote my book called Lead, Live, Energize, Activate, and Discover the Power Within You. Because if you're empowered from within, you're already motivated going into that workplace. And you are the change, and can be the change that you want to be. And then as John Maxwell team member, I'm intentional. I'm teaching the intentional living, so I could come into your workplace and change, make that change. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.